Yeah, Black Lake Manor by Guy Morpuss. This is a murder mystery with some time travel in it, and I thought it was okay. It wasn't just okay. Like I liked it. I did enjoy my experience reading it, and I liked the type of time travel that was used. But I liked it. This book follows Ella Manning, who is invited to her ex boyfriend's showcase party at Black Lake Manor. And he is Lincoln Shaw. He is a tech billionaire who is showcasing this new technology, which he calls the Ghost Dancers, which is a small disc in which that projects hard light, and it's meant to be like a hologram for real life. So a hologram, a virtual world hologram for real life that can actually interact with things in real life and have an effect on real life. Okay. And after the party, a storm strike struck a storm comes. It just connects everything. Everybody goes to bed. In actual fact, where there were like 100 people at this party, it turns out there weren't 100 people at this party. There were only six, or seven, including Lincoln, and they decide to go to bed. And in the morning, they discover that Lincoln Shaw has been murdered. So Ella takes it upon herself to investigate this matter and find the killer, or at least preserve evidence for when the actual cops show up. My problems with this book. Ella is, as an investigator, is tenuous at best. I don't know. Maybe this is a Canada thing. I've got to ask, but she's a marine biologist who has links with the Navy, and she was basically fired from the Navy. How is she a constable? How is she in charge of running an investigation of this magnitude? I mean, she definitely says she's just collecting evidence for this investigation, so when the real cops show up, she'll be fine. Like, she's just gathering evidence and stuff. But how is she in charge? Is this just a Canada thing? Canadians, please. If you know, please let me know. Is this something that you can do in Canada? Because I don't know. Her and like her being the investigating like person for this is kind of tenuous at best. Tenuous at best. And she didn't even like Lincoln. But she's put in all of her time and effort into finding out who killed him. Like, so I just read the forward for full immersion, and I instantly feel like I'm over my head. Like, I've never read a forward before that literally had me in tears. Right. So I did wrap up Full Immersion by Gemma Amor the day that I finished it, but I was umming and ahhing and just couldn't get my head around explaining this book so much that what I recorded was impossible to edit, and I'm not going to put you through that. So let's do this again. So, Full Immersion by Gemma Amor is a sci fi horror novel all about a woman named Magpie who goes, she writes to an experimental psychotherapy facility begging them to let her into their program so she can find help for her mental health. She says in her letter that this is literally her last resort. She has tried everything to get help with her mental health, and this is her last chance because after this, she will not be alive after trying this. And if this fails, she will commit. She is accepted into this facility and they hook her up to a machine, and this treatment is part of a virtual world to help her understand, to help patients understand where their issues begin. They walk through their memories along with the help of a psychotherapist who is anonymous, and they walk through their issues and find out what led them to their final conclusion. And in this book, Magpie is hooked up to the machine and she goes for a walk and she walks her daily route, and it takes her to the bridge where she wants to commit. She comes across her own dead body. So she's not dead per se. In the simulation, she is dead, but while she's there, confused about why she's seeing her own dead body, she meets a man who she calls New Friend. And New Friend is basically her psychotherapist. And he is faceless, and the only thing she can see is his eyes. His physiology is never explained. She just explains that she finds him attractive, but his and the color of his eyes, but his physiology is never really explained in the book because he is meant to be anonymous. And while they are going through her memories, she begins to notice that there is a silhouette that is starting to follow them. And while this is happening in the simulation, the people outside of the simulation begin to notice that Magpie has started to gain control of the simulation, and she has full control over the simulation. They can't do anything about it, and where they are, and she can control everything in this simulation to the point where what is happening in the simulation is starting to affect the real world. Thoughts, thoughts. This book is fantastic. It has that character piece kind of thing that I like in books like Melmoth. And in this book, there is a deeper story going on in here, and you can very much tell, especially with the foreword that starts this book, that this book is all about the author and the experience the author went through in her life. The foreword basically talks about how she had a difficult time after her son was born and her mental health completely tanked, and without the help of her family and the professionals and her writing this book, she probably would have never recovered. And writing this book is all about her giving herself power and control over what happened to her, the power over that dark part of her life. And you can tell very much from reading the foreword that Magpie is meant to be Gemma Amor in this book. Not only does she not really have a name, she's just called, but only her occupation is given, and her occupation is of a writer. And in this book, Magpie has a son, and Gemma Amor has a son. And yeah, this really, really is a personal story to the author. It is exploring her mental health and what it felt like trying to work through her mental health when it was very difficult. And even though Magpie has power in this book, her power isn't realized by her, but is realized by everybody else, but it's having a negative effect on everyone else. And I really enjoyed this book. I don't think I will give this book a star rating because effectively this is to me like the author telling you her own story. So I'm gonna say I give it what I normally give nonfiction, which is I highly recommend that you read this book. There are trigger warnings, and she does give those trigger warnings at the beginning of the book. Um, but I enjoyed it. It was not what I thought it would be, and for that I'm a little bit disappointed. But it was so much more than I thought it was. I was thinking small when I opened this book. So that's it. I read these two books this week. I think I gave this a 4 star, and I'm giving it a highly recommend. So that's it. So I just finished watching the Ahsoka trailer, and I think for the first time, I'm proper excited for a Star Wars piece of media just because I have the books that correlate with that series. So if you don't know, Ahsoka is like this character that exists in the Star Wars series. She looks like this, and her series that's coming out in August is going to tackle the Thrawn trilogy. And a while back, when I was collecting books, I decided to pick up some Star Wars books because I wanted to get into Star Wars. Like, I was struggling to get into Star Wars, and I really wanted to get into Star Wars. So I bought these books thinking that if I read these books, I would get into Star Wars. It wasn't until like watching Mandalorian season 2 that it actually clicked for me and I found something that I liked, which is not anything to do with the Jedi. But I bought these books way before I figured that out. And because now Asaka is following a storyline that I'm a little bit familiar with, I thought it would be a great time to bust out these books and read these trilogies, um, of which there are two, kind of two, um, and read them and get them like up into the Star Wars lore. So these are part of the Thrawn trilogy. They're all by Timothy Zahn. So it starts with the heir of the Empire, Dark Force Rising, and The Last Command. These are part of the Thrawn trilogy. He is apparently like the villain for these books, and his legacy is transferring finally over to the TV series. There is also three other books, another trilogy that is serves as prequels to these books, and I own one of these books. This is Thrawn, also written by Timothy Zahn, and there is also Thrawn Alliance and Thrawn Treason. Those are the two books that I'm missing, but I'm looking forward to that. And then there are two other books called Thrawn Ascendancy, Chaos Rising, and Thrawn Ascendancy, The Greater Good, which is not out yet. So I have all of these. So I think I've got time, right? Ahsoka doesn't come out until August, so I can like pop these into a TBR between then and there, right? Yeah.